This is the Stubbed Toe Show, where Americans come to speak their minds. I'm your host, Kyle, transmitting to you from somewhere under the big sky. Part 2 of the Billings specials. We've got Jay. He's lived in Billings his whole life. His mom was actually on the last podcast, and then talking to him, he had enough little stories I wanted to hear some more. To include, since I'm a car nut, something you said about cruising the points.
Oh, it was, I went to Billings West High back in the day in the 70s. And some of us, we were just, I don't want to say antisocial or anything, but, we could fit in just about anywhere. We had the things called the freaks of the jocks, and we were the motorheads because, there was about a couple dozen of us here at West High. We had the muscle cars. I had a 70 Monte Carlo. My good friend had a 68 Camaro. Two of my friends had Ford Galaxies. One had a Cuda. One had a Super Bee. And we grew up with muscle cars. The old saying goes, boys our age only had two things on our mind. Only had 2 scents on our mind: the scent of gasoline and the scent of perfume, because that's what we wanted to do. And we're by no means we were not rich kids. We were just middle class kids who we didn't get into trouble. We just wanted to have nice looking cars. Like on a Saturday, I would spend 4 hours on my car on a Saturday on a summer, washing it, waxing it, armor all the tires, detailing the inside, just to take it down to the point and cruise around. And the point was, when I first started cruising point, it was actually two-way traffic everywhere. No one-ways like we have now. And I can't remember the exact the year we switched to the one-way streets that we did. I think it was 77 or 76 right over there. So we would, start from Division on 2nd Avenue, go all the way down to 27th or 26th and turn around and go back on 3rd Avenue down the way. And where the big parking garage is right now was a big lot. And across the street, there wasn't a bank there. There was another parking lot. So we would hang around there, we just park our cars, and we had all good stereo systems, We weren't into having the big amps or anything, but, we did a lot of 8-track. That's an old term there, the 8-tracks, the leader to the CD-ROM. But that's what we had. I had a Craig power play and 4 speakers in my back window, and we would, we listened to music and we just talked, we didn't do any vandalizing or anything. We cruised around. Once in a while, we'd set up a race on a light. I'll be the first one to say I spent a few times in front of Judge Beertness. That's the name that was well known back in the days. I helped pave 24th Street with the fines I paid. And there was a dozen of us, 15 of us, the police knew by our first names, because if they heard squealing wheels, they would be looking for us because we were the ones that were racing, and we always had rivalries. Haver, we always said, was the home for the Chevelles. A few Haver guys would come down with these, 396, 427 Chevelles, and trying to see who had the best. And we always were competing against the Laurel boys because, hey, they cranked out some big running cars in the days. And, some names that are synonymous around here is Nybars. He paints, did a lot of cars, painted a lot of beautiful cars. He paints semis now more than anything. And like I said, one friend of mine had a coupe. Matter of fact, shows it still nowadays. He had it since he was 13 years old. He dug it out of a field, a 32 Ford coupe, and now it's wins top shows wherever he takes it and everything.
That's awesome. So, he still has it. Do you still have the Monte Carlo?
No, unfortunately, I long story. I had a wife that didn't like the friend that I hung around with, and the money I spent on toys, so I had to get rid of them all.
Yeah.
So
I told you I had a 70 Chevelle, and it was a Malibu, so it wasn't a factory super sport or nothing.
Yeah.
And I found out why everybody gets rid of cars at some point and says, "Oh, I used to have this." Yeah, it's once you start doing the family thing.
Yeah, it was like I was in the anything that had a motor on it. The cars, I've had a couple fast cars. I had a '75 Mustang with a 302 in it. That was a screaming little car. My Monte Carlo. I one time had a Chevelle for a little bit, but I bent the fender on it and never could find parts for it. So you sell something too low and they don't haggle price.
Yeah.
And then I got into four wheels, Jeeps and stuff like that. So I mean, just even right now, I had a project I just sold, and because it's too expensive. Back in the days, I mean, I built that Monte Carlo with rebuilt an engine, body work, and everything, all for like about $5,000. You can't do that nowadays. You're looking at about 35,000.
Oh, it's
And
expensive. I just sold a couple years ago a first generation Chevy Blazer.
yeah,
That's what I had after the Chevelle, and
yeah.
with kids and stuff, I just didn't have the time for it. But my problem was they got worth too much dang money, so I was like, I don't want to get in a wreck or something because I like driving the thing.
And this is what even nowadays, it's like we drove these cars fast. We had muscles in these cars. We would go out to 56th Street, drag out there. We'd get like 4 or 5 of us, and a lot of it was bragging rights. I had one friend, his dad, I don't know what it was, he could build engines. One day he went to senior high. His dad said, leave your car here. He went to school, came home. His dad had the engine all apart on his 426 wedge Mopar. And within a week, he said, I got you another 300 horsepower out of that. Like, go have some fun. And that's something I'll be the first one to say. Here I am, a teenager, and my parents knew I wasn't going to cause trouble. We had a thing called Good Morning, Your Honor. And if I made it in the paper, the phone would be ringing off the hook on a Monday, because that's when it would come out on Monday. And I said, did you know what Jay did over the weekend and stuff like that? And even back then, the police, they watched over us. I mean, they kept us out of trouble. I have to say that. I mean, even down at the point, they knew who we were. They drive around, they talk with us and things like that. And they knew a lot of us down at the point. You'd have 200-300 teenagers down there on the streets, talking, having fun, playing frisbee. Yeah, there was some drinking beer. I'm not going to get around that, but we didn't cause trouble. That's all I can say is, and that's what I say when the point started dying about 82, 83. There was a lot of getting to be vandalism and stuff, and even we, all of us, we couldn't figure out why. Is we could hang around to downtown till 2, 3 in the morning. Police would pull by and park. What are you guys doing? And we'd be out in Granite Towers parking lots throwing frisbee. Said, we're just playing frisbee here and BS. And they said, okay, don't cause trouble. And yeah, I mean, they knew who we were. Police were great. I mean, they kept us out of trouble. I have to say that. And I was a couple of times we'd go over at a friend's house, and especially down the south side there. One time we were there shooting pool. The next we heard the door open and close. We said, God, I thought you mom and dad were gone for the weekend. And he says, yeah, saw so too. Didn't know who came in. And here come the priest from Little Flower Church down the stairs. And he kept us out of trouble that night. He found out that we were hanging out at my friend's house, and all of us, and he just showed up and just made sure we were going to stay out of trouble and not cause any much trouble. Shoot pool with us, and yeah, he even had a beer or two with us, So it was kind of a really good time, which yeah, it was like we cruised the point. We took pride in our cars, and a lot of us who did cruise the point, we had jobs. We went to high school, and we were working, like I said, jobs. We were making money. The one friend I was telling you about up there in Jefferson City, he used to manage cattle company. After he'd get off work, he'd come down to the point. We'd cruise around and stuff. And like I said, I worked at Sandy's Drive-In on 24th, and that kept me going. It's now the filling station. It's now just a car wash and everything by across the street from McDonald's on 24th and Central. But that's where the guy built my car. He came in and said, I could help you build a nice street rod out of this Bonnie. And I said, great. He says, but you're going to have to work for me. I go, huh? And he goes, yeah. He says, I'll do it on credit. I had to tear it down, and he was teaching me how to put it all back together. And we built this engine up in that car. And like I said, parts were cheap. You paid $150 for a Holly carburetor and $90 for a Edelbrock intake with a 4-inch high rise on it, and hooker headers or Headman headers for an engine for like about $35. Everything seemed to be affordable for a kid to build a good engine, and cars back then were very easy to work on, not like they are today.
Yeah.
You know,
Whenever I swapped the engine on my Blazer, I was able to stand up inside of it. Once I had the radiator out and whatnot.
Yeah. There was room. You could
Yeah.
actually crawl inside that engine compartment. I mean, I knew I could with my Monte Carlo because it just had a small block engine in it. Monte Carlos came with big blocks too, but mine happened to have a very high in demand small block 400. They only made them for 1 year with a 4-bolt main, and I had one of those. So
I was going to ask you what it had because the Chevelle, I know. I mean, mine had, I think, I don't remember what it came with factory, but it had a 396 in it, which the 70 came with that or a 454. I don't know if the Monte Carlo was the same or was it?
Well, usually now with your Chevelle, did it have bucket seats and a shifter between the seats?
No, because it wasn't a real SS.
Oh, okay. So it just had the column shift. Yeah, because the SSs were all bucket seats with either a four-speed or an automatic with a shift, and like the Monte Carlo SSs were bucket seats with T-shift Hydroglide with a 454 in it with the L88. And there was a guy that had one of them, and I tell you what, that was a beautiful car. He had Steve Miller's, I can't remember which album it was, but it was The Horse. It was maroon, and he had that painted mural on the hood of his car. And that was a beautiful car. He was trying to see how fast it was going, and he clipped a pole one time and made a mess out of it. But
jeez. Well, if I grew up in that era, I don't know if I'd have survived to have a cool car like that at that young an age. I mean, I didn't have the Chevelle till I was an adult, and I still was an idiot with it.
Yeah, and here again is we never had accidents. It's hard to say. Is like, a couple of them that did have accidents. Yeah, but I don't know. The car was built to take the accident. One guy had this car called the Gentleman, a nice Camaro. He wrecked it. He walked away from it, but it was all built to race. It had the roll cage in it, had the bucket seats with the belts and stuff. And like with my Monte Carlo, I would just go on the highway and race people. It wasn't designed to be a dragster, but it was a runner. So we would take it out on the highway and run it. But yeah, I did get caught a couple of times in Billings trying to run it where the police, and they were pretty cool about that too. The one funny story I had, I was racing my friend with his Caprice, and we were out there on Shiloh and Central, and we drag race, and all of a sudden I didn't see my friend, and I said, God, I can't be beating him that bad. Looked up, there were the lights. We didn't try to outrun the cops. We just pulled over. And nowadays you can't go into the police officer's car, but it was a sign of respect if you got out of your car and got in the back seat of his car. You had your license and registration and insurance. What was funny about it was on that particular one, my friend and I are in the back seat, and the officer's just sitting on the steering wheel, shaking his head. He goes, "You guys didn't even see me. I was flashing my lights on brights, honking my horn and everything to let you know I'm out here." So, and then a few times when we did get caught, they would say, you guys shouldn't be doing this. I know you're being safe and all of this, but you got to knock it off now. Get out of here. Stuff like that. I mean, in the year I graduated, we made the paper for having the longest senior kegger there ever was. It lasted 7 days, but and there again, nobody got in trouble. Nobody caused trouble. No fights. No nothing. It was just 7 days of a good time out there on the West End, and that was out by 67th or 62nd and Grand. Now it's now a whole subdivision. We used to call that Holy Fields. That's where we would hold the keggers and stuff. That's what we used to do. We'd like go down to the point, find out what's going on, who's got what going, and we cruised to make friends. We cruised to pick up girls, And frankly, in my era, you really had a hard time getting a date if you didn't have a car, and especially if you had a real nice car, you could get a date. So.
Yeah, so the Pinto wouldn't do it for you, I guess.
No. Pinto sure as heck wouldn't do it. You had to have something nice, you know. But yeah.
I had two for you in the car thing. That you remember back when you were in the scene, who had the baddest car? I guess I don't care about the name, but what was the meanest
Oh,
car that
that
somebody had?
one guy at West High, he had himself a beautiful GTO 427, and he would come down and um, there'd be a lot of people who'd want to run him for money. And you always hear the story, run for pinks. Nobody bet their car. We
Yeah.
were going to go for titles. We ran for either the glory of it, bragging rights, or if somebody wanted to put up some money to see if what we got in our pockets, put it together, and we bet on the car. That particular guy had that GTO. Was funny was it was right on Second Avenue North. I think it's where Comcast is now. We used to call that the Ma Bell building. And he was getting ready to run a car. We were egging him on and everything. He dropped that clutch, and we had to go running because that drive line came flying out from underneath his car. He didn't have any drive line rings on there, and came flying out from the car. Parts were all over the place and stuff like that. So we
Do you
had a good
remember
laugh about that.
Do you remember the year of that GTO? Is it like that boxy
It was
first
a set.
generation?
No, it was a 70 GTO.
Sweet.
And my one friend I was telling you about, he had a Mopar Super B with a 426 wedge. That was a hot running car. And another friend of mine, he had himself just a Chevelle, and he just made sure it was just for show. And then another friend of mine, he had a 71 Monte Carlo black, and I had my 70 Monte Carlo, which was called Emerald Green. A close friend of mine, he had a beautiful Ford Galaxy. But 2 years after he graduated, he got killed in it. He was not doing anything, just driving down the road and fell asleep at the wheel. And he rolled it out on King Avenue. There wasn't anybody in Billings at that time at Senior Enter West. There was muscle cars all over the place. Not like you have now. I mean, like I said, you had a parking lot full of Chevelles, Mopar, Ford, Mustangs, Camaros, you name it.
It sounds awesome. My dad is probably about your age. He had a 69 Charger 500 when he was in high school. But but same thing. I mean, it's from the Midwest. Everybody had them.
Yeah.
And, yeah. What a time. When I was getting my first car, the only cool thing I could think of that I could afford was like one of those 80s Camaro IROC Z28s or something.
Yeah.
And I would have been so happy with one of those crappy cars, but they're not even close, different thing altogether.
We used to call it Detroit steel. They were built all metal, no plastic. Some people really like to have chrome on a car. I made sure my chrome was very limited, just the two front bumper and back. I did not have a chrome grille. I didn't like that. Even to this day, I don't like chrome on a vehicle because, one, it's really high maintenance, and two, it doesn't look good on a car.
Yeah, you were ahead of the time then.
Yeah.
now it's not as popular. I didn't mind it, but I don't like it chrome over plastic, like just junk trim.
Even back then, I had one of my friends, when he had his car repainted, he had the chrome off his bumpers scrubbed up, and he painted the bumpers. It was all one color. There was no chrome on it. So that was kind of nice, really cool looking. And we had, a lot of metal flake in the paints. A lot of us repainted the cars we had. Of course, we put the metal flake in it, so when one guy's car would actually change colors under the light, the type of flake he had in it. And that was something else. Body work was easy to do. Shooting a car was easy. A lot of people shot their cars in their garage and came out pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know what the difference is now and then. I mean, there's definitely paint and body work super expensive, and frankly, no one wants to do it. And if they want to do a paint job, it's going to cost you over $10,000. And that might be even dated. But
oh yeah, part of my travels in life, as I put it, I had 28 years starting out with the United States Postal Service and worked my way up and being a manager and everything. And then 2011, they shut our district down, as they called it, and I had only two options: either move to New York, DC, and large cities for what I was doing. That's where the work would have been at, and I took out an early out. But one of the things I got to do was working at GE Financial here in Billings, and I would send fleets to market, fleet cars to all the Mannheim auctions in the United States. There's 250 of them, and I had the wonderful opportunity to go out to the largest one in Chicago. And it was kind of funny when they paint cars there, they'll paint 30 at a time underneath one roof. They have a huge computer thing to match the paint, you name it, or whatever for the car that they're going to shoot. And there'd be 5 guys shooting at the same time. It's just that they had such a suction draft to go down underneath the floor. You'd see no spray in the air. So you could paint 30, 40 different colors in there and not spray anywhere. It'd just be sucked right down in the floors. And that's what they used to do. But back in my day, you could only do one at a time. You had yourself a paint area that was sheeted out, and you had to put the mask on so you wouldn't suck in all that enamel. That's kind of what it was like to have those types of cars. I mean,
yeah. I mean, other costs, it seems like, I don't know, post-COVID, who knows? Everything price-wise went stupid. But like on that Blazer I had, I did the engine swap. I put just a more late model with hydraulic roller cams 350 in it. One of those throttle body fuel injection things they sell nowadays. And I think I did it for, gosh, it was under $4,500.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that was me doing all the labor, and that same engine, I mean, I bought it for $2,000 then, now it's $4,000.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean, it's, even then, like, I couldn't have done that as a high schooler. Maybe my job wasn't paying enough, but yeah, it's just, I don't know, maybe not enough hobbyists nowadays to keep the price down.
I don't know. Back then, I always say, and I was doing a lot of stuff on a job, just barely paid over minimum wage and work all day or all week. And then, I mean, this was out of high school. I went to work for a company that did things in oil fields and stuff. And then I worked part-time at Metro. That was a fun gig too. I was security there, and being able to do all that, and have had a couple of motorcycles and my car, and about 80 I traded the Bonnie off for this really nice Mustang that I beefed up a little bit there. But then that's when after a year later of that, I got into 4-wheel drives. And to this day, I'm still a little bit of 4-wheel drives. Like to find another nice little, I had a 72 GMC that the wife I'm married to now, it was kind of funny, was there's this big old GMC I have, and it was snow outside, and some guy wanted to run me in a little car, try to beat me up on King Avenue. My wife's looking down, don't try it, and the light turned green, and that guy couldn't get going. I'm spinning 4 wheels in the snow and everything, and it's about 2 feet of snow on King Avenue. But yeah, it was like, you had a lot of fun doing that. And like I said, with cruising, that's some cruising the point, you met people, and then we'd go out to I think it's Grand Lumber now, but back at that time it was called Gulf Forum. And that was a neat place where us kids would hang around. It was an indoor miniature golf and a huge game room. You had your pinball, foosball, asteroid. I think that's what it was. Yeah, asteroid game. You've probably heard of that.
Yeah.
Pac-Man and all of that, and that was a big thing. I don't know how many quarters I ever jammed in one of those things, but that's something else too. It was open till about 1 in the morning, and that's where we'd hang out.
Keep you out of trouble staying open that late. That's the thing.
Well, and that's something else too. We went there, didn't get in trouble. We didn't, I don't know what it was. We just didn't fight with each other or anything like that. The owner of Gulf Forum knew myself and a few other ones. Sometimes you just say, hey, I'm going to leave, and just make sure you lock up. And we'd be playing pinball and everything till 4 in the morning, and we'd lock the doors and go home. I don't know. We were trusted kids, teenagers. I mean,
yeah, no, I wouldn't trust nobody that much nowadays.
Yeah.
One question on the car stuff before I get off that one. This one I'm curious about. So I know Montana, no speed limit till what, 90 something?
Well, I grew up in the era of the double nickel. I mean, we had speed limits. We hated it. I mean, it was 55 up until about Gosh, until the whole United States complained about it. We got before there was no speed limit when I was a real little kid, because I remember my dad would drive 100 going up to Big Timber because my grandparents lived up there and stuff. Then they threw in the double nickel because they said it's going to save on gas and everything. Boy, just killed everybody. And then I want to say it was like in the late 80s, all the way through almost a good 8 years, we had on the highways alone, not on the byways, the two laners, but on your I-90, as long as it was those types of highways, the I-15, it was drive in a careful and prudent manner. So everybody was, hey, I'd be the first one to say it was great to lock in at 90 and just cruise, but we were starting to get people going like 130, 140. I mean, they would get nailed for that because they said, that's not driving in a careful and prudent manner, and
that's what I was curious about. I knew it wasn't. There's no way it was like a police, like an Audubon situation.
Correct.
Like I figured they got somebody, but I mean, careful and prudent. I don't know. For a supercar, 130 is probably not bad, but something else, no.
Well, and here's something. Believe it or not, Kyle, was there again. The accident rate is right around here in Montana. They talk about and stuff, but I always remember it's been an average about 250 people get killed on the highway every year, just in Montana. It's been just steady. They keep saying, so it's up or whatever, but the thing is you're going to have somebody going to pull some stupid stunt, not handle it, put it that way. It's like, even myself, I did push a vehicle and stuff, but I knew the limit. I knew the roads. I know, I got to start slowing down because I knew there was something going on up front and everything. And then of course, you didn't play quote like the chicken stuff. Oh, shoot, I'm going to shut her down. I don't care what that other guy does. I'm shutting it down. I know I've got him, but
yeah,
I know he's there. I'm in the lead. I've been in the lead long enough. I'm shutting it down. I'm not going to keep going and really trying to make a statement. You did that because the other thing too is I'm not going to ruin my car. I like to rot it now and then, but I'm not going to burn it up and things like that. Because every now and then when you did run and stuff, next day or the following weekend, you had to take off your valve covers and adjust the valves up a little bit. You wanted to run it, but you knew you're going to have to do something afterwards, after you ran your car, because pushed it a little hard. And like most of us, we made sure our cars weren't junk. We made sure the front ends were in good shape, the steering was in good shape, had shocks, brakes, and we grew up with asbestos brakes. When I worked at that filling station, I keep saying I'm wondering when I'm going to get lung cancer, because when you took those drums off, you just blasted it with air to blew all that asbestos brake dust out.
Oh yeah.
And that was something else too. I was probably in my 30s at the time. I had a pretty fast BMW, and I got into a race with another guy he had a nice little foreign job, and I'm gonna lie, we were running around Billings, but it was like at 2-3 in the morning, there was no traffic around, and we got done. I knew that clutch was hot and the brakes were hot because all you smelt was asbestos. So, but that's when actually, to tell you what, that's when you had a good time running your car. You smelt asbestos. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's cool. You got BMW too, man. I like so many different cars. I mean, I was in the muscle for a while. I'm kind of not as much now. I still love, like you said, the 72 GMC truck, or K10, I guess.
Yeah.
Man, if I had a K10 instead of the Blazer, I would have kept it.
Oh,
that convertible thing killed me. Like you just when the top was off, it was the coolest car in the world when it was nice outside, But
yeah,
every other time I had your choice is either the soft top, which is as loud as can be, or the fiberglass hard top that's just falling apart. None of them are in good shape. I mean, they're all over 50 years old.
Yeah. I worked with a guy at the Postal Service that I think it was 1967 was the first year Chevelle SS came out. I want to say that he went down to Chevy on First Avenue South, bought himself a convertible SS, And to this day, I think it still only has like about maybe 8,000 miles on it. Still
Jeez.
had the factory tires from the showroom. He bought it, took it in, and all he ever did was just bring it out on special occasions and car shows and everything. And then last time I saw him was at a car show. He said, "I finally had to replace the battery. It's not original."
Jeez. How'd he manage that? Oh, you
I
could
don't
add
know how.
acid on the old ones, yeah.
But there you could add the acid into those batteries. They were a nickel cadmium.
Mm-hmm.
They are not like you have now. They are not a nickel cadmium battery. That's why at 5 years or 3 years anymore, your battery's shot.
Yeah, but man,
They
those K10s like you got though, they're just I don't know. I mean, they still kind of ride as modern as you want them to be. You change out the steering box or whatever if you choose to, but it's
Oh yeah, yeah.
they ride fine. I mean, my Blazer rode fine and easy
Oh
as
yeah.
heck to keep the powertrain modern if you choose to. But I love them.
Well, see, back then in those days, cars were all mechanical. There was nothing. Au- well, automatic transmissions, but I'm trying to think of the right word. There was no computer.
ECU, that stuff.
Yeah, all it was is you had a timing light, a vacuum gauge, and that's how you put things in place. There's about two vacuum lines. You take off your carburetor, or plug one, and put that vacuum gauge on that to where you could adjust your carburetor. The timing light for your distributor to make sure it was in time. Usually it was 6 degrees off center, and that's where you were getting your optimum spark. Sometimes if you want to get a little better spark, you go up a little further and stuff like that. I mean, you could sit there and really play with it. That's about all you can think of is to really get that car operating the best. Some people had a little dyno machine that they'd watch it. They could do that, but most of us, we just worked on our cars with a feeler gauge, timing light, and vacuum gauge, and that's about it. Easy
Mm.
to do a tune-up. I would swap my plugs out about 2 or 3 times a year. I made sure nothing would get corroded on it. Make sure it was always firing. And back in those days too, is like cars needed that lead and that gas. I mean, it costs money to remove the lead out of the gas to make it unleaded. Or
Mm.
back in the days is like I had a nice 62 Ford F100 for about 5 years. Have you ever heard of Marvel Mystery Oil?
I've got some.
Okay, yeah, I had about every third tank I had to put in a quart of Marvel Mystery Oil because it had lead in it. Because all I had was unleaded gas for that 351,
Mm.
and that was an original 62 351, and it needed the lead for the valves to keep the valves coated because that's how you made your valves last. But
Yeah.
now, of course, things are made to where we're running on the unleaded. They use different material inside the engines and stuff. So, but I don't know what it is about Marvel Mystery Oil. If you have a tick in your engine, put a little bit in your gas, it goes away. I don't know what it is.
It's
That's why they call it Marvel Mystery Oil.
it's all in the name. I still wonder all the time if it's snake oil or not. I used it. I bought some to help get a Mercury, big
Mm-hmm.
old Mercury card. It had a 460 in it. I briefly owned.
Yeah.
I got that to help unseize the engine, and it worked.
Yep.
But the carburetor stuff for my generation. I mean, I'm in my 30s. That was my problem with some of the cars is I didn't know anybody or I didn't
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know how to like get a carb running right. Like I'd always
Right.
be off one side or another on it. And that's half with the Blazer why I went to that throttle body fuel injection stuff. That hated the cold. I drove it out here. It was really cold out and it was kind of
Mm-hmm.
trying to die on me. I also bought the cheapest one, so I don't know. You pick.
Oh yeah. I mean, there again, people had favorites growing up. Everybody was talking about the Holly 650. Some would say the Carter 2500. Those were the two major carburetors we would use, Hollies or Carters. I think Fords were mostly Hollies. Chevys were Carters. I don't know what Mopar was, but I mean, those were the two major carburetors you drift to. Either the old mechanic that I used to work with, or actually had that Exxon filling station, which was kind of funny, is like think of gas stations at one time, especially Exxon's, was like a post office. That's all I can say is like, here he was the postmaster. He was the guy that ran the Exxon station. They sent him to the class so he could manage it. Anything he did in the garage was his. It wasn't part of Exxon. I mean, everyone had a garage, and every one of them were mechanics, because Exxon's were full service stations and everything. But what he did in there was strictly his. But he got the commission off the gasoline and any other parts, the oil and stuff we sold, and that's pretty much when I would fill up the full service. Remember that? No, I don't know how old you are. Full service. You'd go out there, fill up the gas, you check the oil, air pressure of the tires, wash the windows. That's what I did there. And but like he had himself a nice 66 2+2 that he used to drag up at Lewistown, and that's where some of us, I didn't do it, but a couple of my friends, even though they cruised here, they would load their cars up on car haulers and then take them up to Lewistown. That was a drag race track. And Glendive, that was another drag race track. And on the about 2 weekends a month during the summers, June, July, and August, they had drags, bracket racing up in those areas. And I'll use his first name, the guy Bill. He had himself that 2+2. And what he would let myself and two other guys that worked there in the back end where you dump the oil, you had you change your oil and you put it down in this tank. Well, he'd let us take some of that oil and put it out on the back asphalt and let us line lock that drag car of his, and we would burn the slicks up for him. So he would let us do that in the back with his race car, and that thing had a 427 in it, and he used a 3-barrel. And we would always ask him, why do you use a 3-barrel over a 4-barrel? And he says, well, 4-barrel, you have your primaries, which are two tiny little holes. And then your secondaries were a little bit bigger for the back end. I said, then why do you use a 3-barrel? He says, because you get two big front holes in the front of the carburetor and one big back one. So it's like flushing a toilet when you put your foot into it. So he really liked the 3-barrel carburetors because he would clock about a 9.8 with that little 2+2 Nova that he had. And they nicknamed him the Sledgehammer Mechanic because he had to stand on the the little valance in front of the windshield.
Yeah.
And take a sledgehammer and slammed in the firewall so he could get that 427 to fit into
it. What was the make model of his?
It was a Chevy 2+2, the leader up for the Nova. They just call them Chevys 2+2s.
Okay, yeah, it was 2+2s in Ring a Bell. I know what you're talking about now, though.
Yeah, they're a little boxy looking thing, small, and that was one fast little rig he had. He could tear apart a Chevy and put it together in about 2 days. And he built some engines for a couple for friends of mine, and then people would come in with a block and they said, I need me an engine, and he'd build engines, fast engines. And out in Laurel, there was it was a family of brothers, 3 brothers. They could build Chevy engines like you couldn't believe.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, the old Chevy 2s are cool. I don't know. I like a lot of them. I know they weren't as popular. I even like the, I don't think they were great cars, but I like the body style of the early Vegas. They kind of look like mini Camaros,
The Monzas, the late 70 Monzas. There was a guy, he was running the circuits through around here and down in South Dakota. He had a Monza with a 427 that he ran a pretty good time. And there used to be one guy in Billings, I'd tell a story. He had a beautiful white pearl 68 Camaro on the spoiler. It said, on the 7th day God created Camaro. That was but yeah, I mean, I tell you, it was fun times. It's time that's gonna be, nobody cruises anymore. Like when you have the downtown at the point down in Billings, when they have it, you don't see any of the cars. And when it first started, the new one, I had a really nice 71 Chevy pickup I was telling you about. And we had a lot of blasts, but then a lot of the business people didn't like us having a blast. When you're underneath Sky Point there and you've got about 300 people cheering you on, of course you're going to light it up. burn a little rubber, and that's what myself and another guy did. And then when the light turned green, we gave a run for the money, and the two pickups we were running, um, and then a few years later, they said we can't be doing that when burn the point. You just parade around, so it's kind of like, you're not going to get the feel of the point.
Yeah, one day a year, something.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Like my office down here that I have, I'm looking at a picture of my Monte Carlo. I tell you what, I'll send you a picture of it that I had.
Oh, you have to. No,
It,
they're cool. I
yeah,
looked it up here. I didn't know that was the first year for them.
yeah. I had what they called a Western spoke wheel, 60s in the back, 70s in the front, so it gave it a nice. When you looked at the back end, you saw these just big rear tires on it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was quite the rig. I got a lot of attention on it. I'm not gonna lie, I liked it. But my office I have down here, I just have a lot of die-cast cars of street rods, coupes, all of that. I was very heavy into vehicles back in my younger years and starting out of my young adult life. But as you said, what do you want? You're going to have to make some choices.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh yeah, I
yeah,
mean half the reason I sold that Blazer part was just the COVID stuff was making my job weird, all kind of junk,
uh-huh.
and it was also I was like, when am I gonna have time to mess with this truck again? So many little
What?
things. I was glad to cash out.
Yeah, and good friends that I've known for over 30 some odd years and plus like that. The one who has the coupe I was telling you about, he's retired now. He's working on his third car right now.
Yeah.
He's got a coupe and a '68 SS Camaro, and now he's going to work on a pickup, make a street rod out of that pickup, an old 30-ish Ford pickup. And there again, you drop in a 327. 327s were the engines that put in a lot of this stuff because they're an engine that just doesn't die.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've still got a project car. I'll tell you when we finish up recording. It is one of the dumbest cars I've ever messed with in my life. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you about it.
Oh
But
yeah.
it sounds like it was a cool year or cool era to be running around, cool
Yeah.
cars, people staying out of
Yeah.
trouble for the most part.
Yeah.
And
I will say from 74 to 81. Those were, I mean, that's where you met. You went downtown, hung out, had a fun time. Fridays and Saturday nights. That's what you did.
yeah,
Uh,
but it's interesting you said it. It started changing, people vandalizing stuff, and
yep.
it had me thinking. I'm not too big a fan of society nowadays. Everything's in decline, and maybe it's gradual, or maybe it was a hair metal that did it. I don't know.
Well, there again, when we talk about that and stuff, I look back at my own childhood. I mean, my parents were strict, but hey, you know, don't get into trouble. Respect other people's stuff. You can have a good time without, mind the expression, being a jackass. That's all it is. And we weren't that way. We respected everybody. Yeah, grant you, we had rivals. Hey, I can't stand that guy, but you didn't sit there and do anything to him. You just,
Yeah,
sneered at him and stuff like that. And then as you got older, you found out you'd be in a bar, and there they were there, and next you know you're having a beer and you're see who could tell the biggest lie. I mean,
mm,
that's what it was. And I will say this: what it was is a lot of us, we'd go out to Echo Canyon. There was a little place called the Echo Inn, and we'd hang out at the Echo Inn. It was a nice little place to hang out, clear out in Echo Canyon, west of town. So if you ever head out that way,
I'll have to check it out.
yeah, you'll see it. It's somebody. They made it into a house just right off the Malt Road there, right off to your right when you get in Echo Canyon. It's just a nice. It looks like a big sprawl thing, but that was the Echo Inn. They used to have bands and everything out there on Fridays and Saturday nights. It was a nice little place to go hang out.
Yeah, that seems cool. Everybody had their different generations going to high school and stuff, and mine. I'm a '90s kid. I feel like the only thing I'm going to remember it being known as, because there wasn't much, car cruising or anything crazy, was just probably being one of the last generations to not have a smartphone all the time. And because I can relate to people getting together, hanging out and stuff with crappier cars, mind you. But yeah, shoot, new generations, I don't know what they're going to think about. Just texting each other all the time.
Yeah. And I tell you, we did do some of us did some stuff. I never did this, but there was 3 guys from West High. They wanted to see what it was like to roll a car. So they got a car, made sure it was safe to roll or whatever. And they put on helmets and shoulder pads and got strapped in. And they went out in the middle of nowhere in a field and took that car and rolled it. And they got out of that car and said, never again. And then a couple of us, we would switch the tires out on our back end of our car. You'd find some used tires and stuff and park it in some oil and bleach and light them up, and then you see if you could blow the tires. I mean, we did stupid stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
When graduating from my senior year, the dean of boys was trying to figure out who were the 2 guys that held a drag race in front of on St. John's. Distracted the class. It was myself and another guy. Dean of boys was trying to get everybody to say who that was, but nobody in the school said, "Don't know. We don't know who they were." So
naturally. Oh, that's cool. I appreciate you sharing all that stuff with the old car scene, especially. I'm into that still. Probably always will be.
Yep. And then afterwards, I can tell you about what you got to find to do some talks on about some other cities here in Montana. We're loaded with a lot of history, some neat history.
I do appreciate that. I will definitely listen to you on that one.
All righty.
Thanks for sharing the car stories and Billings, and yeah, geez, what a heck of a time, OSHA. I need to go to one of the or Burn the Point car shows. They're still doing some kind of car show. If I ever get mine fixed, I'll be there.
There you go. I mean, this last one, there was my friend had his coupe out there. There were some really nice rods that were out there, but the problem with that is they overheat because they're going so slow. That's the problem with the way they have it there. Is sometimes you have to pull over and I'm done for the night because it's just going too slow to heat up.
Mm-hmm. No, I can relate. I did a hot rod power tour. They used to do some big car drives across the country. Yeah, and the one I went to is in the South with my '70 Chevelle, and yeah, going slow. Mm-hmm. It's fun for about 2 seconds. Then I was looking at the temperature gauge, getting nervous.
Well, those types of cars, they're made for one thing, for running. Mm-hmm. That's all I can say. They're made to run, not slow. You're going there and stuff and make it to run. But
awesome. Hey, I appreciate it again.
All right, no problem. You too, Kyle. Bye.